Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through their industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have with us Cyndee Dhalai. She is a author and poet, and she has played many roles in her life: child, sister, friend, confidant, teacher, wife, mother, counselor, patient, and many more. So we'll talk about that. We'll also learn from her how resilience, spirituality, and self-motivation helped her transform grief into personal growth. We'll learn a lot about how one can rediscover hope and a deeper sense of purpose. Welcome to the show, Cyndee.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Welcome to the show. Welcome to India in this online form, Cyndee. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk right now. We'll talk about how one can heal grief, embrace change, and find strength within. We'll learn all about this. But before that, let's learn a bit about your story, your background, your journey, so that people know who they are listening to.
Well, my name is Cyndee Dhalai, like you mentioned. I am from Trinidad and Tobago, which is in Caribbean. Some people may know where it is, some don't. I've had a lot of experiences in life that I guess some people will find hard to believe. And like you mentioned, I was a teacher. I am a mother. I am a widow. I lost my husband nearly 4 years ago. And I also have many illnesses in my body. I don't say I have it. I say I have it in my body because it doesn't define who I am. I lost 4 years of my life in a fog of illness, and I don't remember much about it. I flatlined a few times, and I went through some things that, well, let's say what most people will go through in life, struggles, you have hardships and stuff like that and things. But I did find myself, because by going through the grief that I experienced and the loss, I realized that life is a lot different. And I've always seen life through my own perspective of life, believing that life does not define who we are and our experiences don't make us who we are, that we have to set our own expectations and let us decide for ourselves, because there's only one of us. There's only one me, there's only one you.
Absolutely. There is only one you, and there is only one me, and there is only one that others are. So we'll talk. So what, Cyndee, I want to understand for the audience, what is it that you are trying to change in the world? What is your message to the world that you are doing?
What I want people to realize is that you can have a life after you suffer loss, and that grief is something that is personal, it's messy. You can't put it in a category, you can't follow a set timetable, and it's unrealistic to expect everyone to grieve at the same time or in the same way. And that sometimes you have to allow yourself to acknowledge what you feel and accept and agree with your loss. And what used to be a union, I guess, depends on who you are suffering the loss with, that you have to learn to create space, because in reality, you are still here. And grief is not confined to just someone passing away or divorce or a breakup. It could also be you grieve from a loss. You grieve from a job loss. You grieve from loss of a good friendship. You grieve from loss of having to relocate to another place. So grief occurs in many different ways. It's not just confined to like a physical loss of an individual. And we have to learn to sometimes see hardships as not something that is intended to break you, but something that is intended to grow you, something that is intended to bring out what you have inside of you and show you pieces of you that you never knew you actually had, or that you thought you did, but you kind of compressed or suppressed because you always didn't think, and you view yourself as not being strong enough or good enough to do something.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Cyndee. So you say that never let your life experiences regulate your expectations and define you. Help us understand this part of your understanding of life very closely?
Well, in a nutshell, I would say that I've had a lot of life experiences. Growing up, I was told that I was unusual, I was different, I had to change, that I didn't fit into I didn't fit people's labels. Now, I am East Indian like you, and I grew up in an East Indian culture. And as you know, even though I grew up in Trinidad and Tobago and it's a mixed culture, there are traditional rules you're expected to follow. And there are certain things you're supposed to do, certain ways you're supposed to behave. And I always questioned everything. And I got told that, no, you're not supposed to. But then when I ask why, of course, you don't get an answer. And I started to think outside the box. And I would look at things and I would be more observer than participant sometimes. And I would see, and I said, no, this is not who I am. This is not what I want to be. And so I went through a lot of that. And then I chose to get married outside my religion, and I got disowned by everybody. My parents, my temple, everybody disowned me. And I had to start from -0. But my husband and I worked and we got through everything and we worked hard. And then I got really ill, and they couldn't figure out for years what was wrong with me. Then they found out I had lupus and psoriasis and a whole set of other things. And that took a spiral in that I lost 4 years of my life because I flatlined. And I was present in body, but in terms of present in mind, I wasn't really present. Like, I wasn't aware of what is happening. The only thing I knew about my body being ill was what my husband and my children told me, or what the medical report said, or what the doctor said, because I have no recollection of going through all of that. And I do know flatlining because according to the medical reports, I flatlined 5 times. And I'm allergic to all drugs. So I can't take even a Panadol if something is wrong with me. And the illnesses are still in my body. And nobody understands how 12 years after the last time I had a serious episode, how I can still be here, how I can still be alive, how I can actually walk, because I was in a wheelchair for over 11 and a half years. And now I walk, I look after myself, I do everything for myself. I write because doctors weren't sure how I would be after, because of the severity of how my illness was.
Right, right, Cyndee. So, how do you motivate yourself? How do you plan for the future? How do you look for a purpose into your life? How do you look into the future with hope and, you know, something beautiful?
Because I have seen it in my life, and that's where it comes from. Because the fact is that every time I've been through something, we live life forward. We always want to look forward. We always want to go forward. But then when you look back, that's when you really see the impact of what has taken place in your life. And I have become more present in what it is now, because every single day something happens to me. I might still be going through the same routine, but every day something happens to me in that I'm still here. I'm still breathing. I can still do things. I can think. I can talk to people. I can sometimes just go outside and look. And the thing is, those are simple things that we have to look at. Okay, talking about motivating myself. After I thought I was managing. After my husband died, I thought I was managing. I was okay because, I had been through all this stuff and I was a strong woman and I had things to do, things to look after. And, I would talk to myself and I would deal with the grief to a certain extent and the loss and things like that. But then something happened in November 2023, and I realized that I was not really looking at what I was feeling. I wasn't really facing myself because I just kind of went downhill. And I said, Cyndee, this is not you. This is not how it's supposed to be. You have to go through this. You have to stop running. And I decided, and I sat down and I just started writing, and everything came out. And I realized that even though there were things from before that I thought I had forgiven and I had put aside, I realized that I didn't really do that. And that everything was kind of compressed in, and that loss was so deep that because when somebody comes a part of you, because love is the most bravest thing you can do. At least I always think so. It's the most courageous thing you can do, because you take a great risk when you love somebody, because you do understand that you give a part of you to someone and they become a part of you. And when that there's that absence of someone who you gave a part to and you took into you, you have the memories, but you don't have the physical presence. And that is about being human, because we understand as we love, we can lose, because we are all human and we are all mortal. And I sat down and I took a note of everything, and I wrote, and I said, and when I read it over, I was like, oh Lord, there are a lot of things here that I didn't even see. That I realized that I wrote things that I didn't see. I knew, but you don't see it unless you actually face it. And that motivated me to think back. And I saw that every time that something happened to me, I moved, even though I might have lost some things, I moved a step further. Because when I was confined to a wheelchair, I love driving. I love being independent. I did everything for myself. Even though I was married and I had children, I love to do my own thing still, you know, and I couldn't do that. And that frustrated me. But I did find other ways to do things, and that I learned to look deeper into myself and see, okay, I don't have this now, but what can I do instead? So it's not as if you put yourself in a box and say, okay, well, this has changed and this is how it's going to be. You have to look at your alternatives, because there are always choices, And I practiced languages, and I read more, and I learned to bake really, really good. Even though I was in a wheelchair, I still cleaned, and I learned to bake and experiment with stuff and do calligraphy, because I do art, and I practice calligraphy. And even though I'm a writer now, I never always wrote in my head. I never really wrote like in on paper, and I realized that even if something happens, I could still adjust, and I can still find a different way to find happiness, because by nature I tend to be happy, and I tend to laugh at everything, and there is much goodness. So that's it. And then after I wrote my book, I decided that, listen, I am not going to be drawn into the spiral that comes with grief, because we tend to get so bogged down of thinking about what we lost, and we begin to get questions. And yes, that is normal, because grief is messy. It is normal. It is going to tear you apart. It is going to pull you in different directions. It's going to come up when you least expect it. And it is okay. You have to face it. It's okay to cry. It's okay to scream. It's okay to get angry. It's okay to blame and to go into denial. It's okay. But what you have to do is you have to realize that you go through grief your way, in your own time period. You process it according to how you are as a person. Nobody else can tell you how to grieve. Nobody else can tell you, okay, it's time to stop doing this. It's time to move on. Nobody can tell you that. You have to see that in yourself. But what you can do is you can acknowledge it, you can accept it, and you can agree with it. And that is most important, because we acknowledge that we have a loss, right? We accept that this person is no longer physically here, or whatever you lost is no longer part of your life. But sometimes we don't agree with that. And that is the thing that keeps us spiraling and spiraling and spiraling. In that, if you make a contract with someone, you know the terms and stuff like that, you go through it, you understand it, you acknowledge what the terms are, you accept what the terms are, but you have to sign on the dotted line to say that you agree to it. And that's what you have to do with yourself. You have to acknowledge that you have to kind of make a contract with yourself. I acknowledge that I lost someone. In the case of, say, you lost someone you love or whatever, I acknowledge that this person was part of my life and that they're no longer here. I accept that they're not physically present, or that they are no longer within my world where I am right now. And you have to agree that this person was part of my life and they had an impact on it. And we created memories together, and we had good and bad. But before, where there was a we, you and me made we, now there's only me. And I have now to I won't lose the memories. I won't lose what we shared together. But what I can do is I can hold it for what it is, because it will always remain inside of you. And I can create space around it and find ways that I can find out, why am I still here? Where am I supposed to go from here? And that's what you have to do. And that's where my strength came from. And that I put, okay, this happened. Someone who was a part of me is now not part of my life. And that absence is in me. But I'm still here. Yes, I can look after home. Yes, I have children. Yes, I have things I have to do every day and stuff like that. But what is it that makes me feel fulfilled? What is it that makes me feel content? What gives me peace? What gives me joy? Because my joy is inside of me, and I am responsible for my own joy. Nobody else can make me happy except me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Cyndee, in your experience, can we prepare for life's uncertainties in advance? What is your experience?
We know from the onset that life is unpredictable. We don't know if we go out, say we go to work and we're driving in traffic. We don't know if we're going to get an accident. Circumstances happen in such a way that we don't know. But what we can do is we can look at things from a different perspective. Okay, you're on your way to work, you're in traffic, right? And the normal reaction is, I don't want to be in traffic. I don't know, I'm going to be late. Look at all these people on the road, all these cars. Why can't they move faster? What is called, and you begin to stress and you begin to think about all these things, and you focus so much on just being in the traffic and in the situation you're in. But did you stop to think, maybe if you think, okay, hey, look around. Oh, I never noticed that building before. Look at it, how many different color cars there are. The sky looks totally different today. If you detach from the situation you are in just a little bit, if you step back, because listen, you're not going to change the traffic. You're getting stressed out is not going to make the traffic move any faster. But what you can do is you can detach from your situation and instead look around, play a song on the radio, you know, listen to the sound of, if your windows, listen to the sound of the wind. Look outside, look at the sky, just remove yourself so that you become more balanced.
Absolutely. Tell us a bit about your, journey to becoming an author and poet. How did you, did you find solace from it for your, the days that you had to go through? Help us understand that part.
Okay, actually, I would write poems periodically. Like I said, my mind always has poems spinning in it, you know? Because right now my mind is thinking, sometimes amid the chaos, we have to find solace. And though we feel ourselves pulled deep within, we have to just detach from our feelings. Because life isn't about a race. You have to set your own pace. Now that just came into my head, so I'm not like reading from anything, right? But I wrote a few, but I didn't really, because life was so busy. I had a husband, I had a house, I had a job, I had children, I had all these things happening. So I didn't really focus too much, even though it kept spinning in my head. And then in August the 22nd, 2022, 25th, 2022, I was talking to someone who was very, very close to me. And they said, listen, you are not clear on some things. I want you to do me a favor and just tell me, I want you to focus on something. And they gave me a question. And when I sat down and really sat down to answer the question, I wrote a poem. And when I read it over, it was like, where did this come from? And that's why I started writing. And I started writing poetry. And not to say anything, but it just came out. And I wrote about 300 poems in a year. And then in November 2023, I actually published my poetry book, Pieces of Me Touch My Soul, that spoke about like what some things that came into my mind about my experiences. And that was published on Amazon. And then when the book came, I was like, but I always keep writing poetry because I have like books and I do write poetry. I don't write it on the laptop. I have to write by hand because that's how I write. And when things come up in me, I find it easier to write. Because when I'm speaking to people, maybe a bit difficult because yes, you can talk to people but sometimes they don't get it. And what you want to see doesn't come out exactly how you want because you have to watch your words when you speak to people sometimes. But when you write to yourself, like how I write, I just write whatever comes in my head. I don't sterilize it. I don't edit it. I just write. And that's what I do because everything I've written, all my poems, all my books, everything, exactly how I write is exactly how it is done. It may be edited grammatically or something, but the words are exactly what I've written because those are my thoughts. So, and I find that writing helps me. And for anyone, actually, when you write, in a way, you are facing yourself because you can't lie to yourself. You can't write something and then say, okay, well, this is what I feel, but it's not really so bad. When you write to yourself, or even if you record yourself, if you don't want to write or whatever, you can tape yourself. And when you record yourself and you listen back to your own words, you will know if you're lying to yourself. So when you write, it's a form of facing yourself. It's like you're mirroring what you feel inside. And that gives a lot of revelation sometimes. When you read back what you write, you see some things that you may not be conscious of. And that's why I love to write, because everything that is in me comes out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's much to learn about life, learn about healing, learn about grief, embracing change, and also finding strength within. There's so much to learn from you about all this. And I'm sure a lot of people would want to connect with you, learn more about you, from you, through your book as well as poems. So, what is the best way for them to do so, Cyndee?
Well, my books are on Amazon.com. There's a poetry book, Pieces of Me Touch My Soul by Cyndee. And then there's also the book, Grief is a Price You Pay for Love, Run Into the Fire, Discover Me in the Ashes, which speaks about grief, but it is not confined to just losing someone. It talks about loss on a general sense also. And it also gives some things to bear in mind also about it. And that book is on Amazon.com. Grief is a Price You Pay for Love, Run Into the Fire, Discover Me in the Ashes. And I wrote that under pseudonym Thealion.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.